their distribution, and then their height in the water column, because this is a three-dimensional space, so it's not just looking from an aerial view looking down, it's also their height in the water column. So you can see that especially in these like cove wetland areas was where we were seeing the most vegetation. We had this eastern wetland area, and then up here in this northern bend, that's where we were seeing like the densest distribution. And then kind of followed the same trend in late 2025. This was during our early September survey. So you can see it got a little bit more dense in these locations, and then definitely throughout this eastern side of the lake. And I know that we had heard in one of the meetings from some residents in this area talking about the presence of a lot of plant growth in these regions. So that's kind of captured in this. Oh, and also if at any time, if anybody has any questions about any of these figures or anything in general, feel free to cut me off, and please do.
Can I stop you then?
Yeah, please do.
So this is not invasive species.
No, I have those. We'll get to see those too.
Okay. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that was there.
So these are all species that were observed in each location. You can see that some of these look like over here on the western side of the lake, where it's just really kind of not very many species towards the shoreline in those areas, so nice sandy shorelines. So these are where we saw Eurasian water milfoil in early July. And we'll see this later when we look at the applicator maps, but we didn't see the presence in any of the areas that were treated by PLM in June. So that shows really good treatment efficacy. And we just kind of saw sporadic patches, like the densest location was here in 118, which is kind of in that really almost emergent area of growth. So we saw a dense cluster in there, and then pretty sporadic throughout the rest. And then later in the growing season, and I mean, this is just kind of typical growth pattern. So, they've had all summer to grow, and now we kind of see an expanded coverage. And as is the case for all the invasive species we'll see, they're kind of congregated around the boat launch areas. This is probably like the main vector of how these invasive species are getting into the lake, and this is probably the area of the lake that has the most disturbance. So we saw kind of expanded Eurasia water milfoil growth, but again, just in really light coverage. We encountered one big patch out here. I know that there was some. Oh yeah, are you guys able to see my mouse when I'm gesturing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And in the northern bay, I know that there were some watch areas up here, and we didn't see any in this area, but kind of out here a little bit towards the drop off. We saw a big cluster, and then elsewhere is just kind of hanging out in solitary bunches. But we did see it return to some of the areas that were treated in June, like in this Easy Street Canal area. So definitely persistent in the marina and the Easy Street Canal. So despite the treatments, we saw some late season rebound of the species. And then this is our curly leaf pondweed coverage. We just saw it in these kind of 4 sporadic locations, again in the marina by the boat launch. As I said, that's probably like one of the main vectors for the species in the lake. And here's what it was looking like in the late season. So again, we saw it sporadically as little tiny plants in the Easy Street Canal. And then we saw one plant over here in 167. So a very sporadic coverage of the species, very persistent in that Easy Street Canal. And I know that was something we talked about on one of our meetings of, it's almost feeling like Sisyphus, pushing that boulder up the hill, where it's like, maybe we should evaluate on if recurring treatments are having the desired impact in this area. And if not, maybe we should look at a bigger picture on, like what are the impacts, what are the inputs in this area? Is it something to do with water flow? That maybe those parameters could be adjusted to help improve conditions in that area. So that's something that we'll definitely are going to take a close look at and kind of dive into in the final reporting in that
I just have a
region.
question, Natalie.
Yeah.
So I know like 107, 108, 109, when I was out with PLM before, a lot of that is just visual, and the rate tosses are more outside of the littoral zone. Are you guys counting like fragmented floating plants as well, or is this just rooted plants?
Yeah, so we count any plant that is like alive in the AROS. So any debris that is floating on the surface we don't count, but if it's substantial, we'll definitely make a note of it. Like sometimes if we're seeing after a treatment, especially like a lot of dead material congregating in one location, because that can cause a nuisance, we will say that that's what we observed. But here specifically in like the Easy Street Canal area, we saw rooted curly leaf pondweed that was, actively growing, or had been actively growing throughout the season. And then that's kind of like the same way when we see species that have been heavily herbicide impacted too. Like if it seems like it's still kind of hanging out, or maybe it hasn't dropped out of the water column, we will record it. But if we're pulling up on our rakes or seeing visually like it's dead and blackened and laying down, we won't record it, but we'll make note that we saw herbicide damaged species in the certain area. So that's a good question.
Mhm.
And so this is what the Starry Stonewort was looking like. Again, that congregation by the boat launch in these shallow areas. And then what we saw was, especially on the southern side of the lake, it liked to hang out in those drop-off areas. And then interestingly, in the late season, we saw a little bit of expanded growth, but we didn't really see it in a lot of the same locations. It was kind of the most dense in this eastern side of the lake. And I know that we had briefly talked about in one of our meetings different management options besides using copper, herbicide, algicide on the species. So that would be things like um, dash or, just manual removal of the species. But again, we didn't really see it causing that many nuisance conditions. It was mainly just kind of hanging out on the bottom. Again, in like these areas out here, like 175, 178, it was, almost in like 12 feet of water hanging out on the bottom. So we were mainly concerned about the concentrations that we were seeing over here in the eastern side of the lake.
Do you have any theories of why the locations changed? I mean, you didn't have it in early in this, in the sum, early in the spring, not early in the summer, you
Yeah.
didn't. It's curious why it's moving and is it dying off in places and then moving to other places or what's happening here? I don't
Yeah, it's
understand.
interesting. We'll see in some of our species coverage graphs that the Cara population in the lake, which is kind of like the opposite of starry stonewort in a way where it's like, or like the balancing of it, where it's like our native macro algae.
Hmm.
It has a really healthy population in Portage Lake of our native Cara. And what we saw in the late season was a big boom in Cara population throughout the lake. I think it almost doubled. We'll look at the percentages later in coverage. So that definitely has a big play of like the Cara becoming more competitive in the later season, which is what we hope. And then a lot of lakes, kind of like this, where we see that the Cara, our native Cara, is putting up a good fight against the Starry, we'll kind of let that duke it out rather than going after it with herbicides, which can be costly and have other water quality impacts. So,
So,
oh
oh,
yeah,
so does the copper-based herbicides affect Cara too? And so
yeah,
if we're treating with a lot of copper-based, then we're killing the native plants which are competing for the starry stonewort. So that's
yeah.
interesting.
hmm So,
Hmm.
and a lot of times, and in some lakes in particular too, like the starry can almost act and provide similar benefits as our native Cara. It's in those areas where it like poses a big nuisance conditions, form those like really extensive mats and chokes out the native vegetation that we begin to get concerned. But in other areas, like along the drop off, when it's kind of meandering along, in the ideal world and perfect scenarios, you would want no invasive species in the lake, but sometimes, you have to pick your battles, and it's better to have like little bits of the starry here and there rather than try to go at it with really aggressive maneuvers that could impact some of the other vegetation. So definitely like Cara increase is a reason why we could have seen those different starry stonewort locations. some of the other times, like when we're seeing these really light densities, it is often reflecting, like we're getting small fragments on our rake tosses in these deep drop-off locations. And so sometimes it might just be, we're just not capturing it on the rakes because it is like super sporadic, especially compared to the native species, which is good and what you're hoping to see. So.
So if we found some volunteers, divers, then
Mhm.
maybe this could be something that they would be going after as these sporadic, as you're suggesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that could be going after. We actually just finished a vegetation management plan for one of our lakes down here in Southwest Michigan, and they have been persistently interested in alternative management options, and so they're really interested, and we've done dash work out there for them. And so it's really fresh in our minds thinking about Dash and different ways that we can address the Starry Storm. And what they're doing right now is developing their volunteer program to have lake users be able to come out and, tell the difference between Starry and Kara and be able to tease those out. And so we're helping create some workshops and some different trainings that, they can build up their divers on the lake to be able to do that. And kind of like what you were saying in the manual removal, you don't necessarily need permitting. So if you get a bunch of lake volunteers who are really gung-ho about it, then they can go out there and, on their own time, pull up some of those species. I will say that the big thing, and this is why we were working with that particular lake to create these trainings and workshops, is that telling the difference between starry, stonewort, and Kara, our native, can be quite challenging. And I was reviewing some of these underwater videos that you had provided me on that drive. And in some of the ones labeled starry, I was actually seeing a dominance of Kara in those areas. So again, in some spots like that, it's better to just, let it be undisturbed and let that Kara kind of battle it out with the starry stonewort.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mhm. And then here were our Phragmites locations, so kind of persisting in these wetland areas over here in this cove, by that DNR launch slash wetland area, and then one in the emergent wetland area over here in the early season, and then similar distribution in the late season again in these emergent wetland areas. We didn't see it over here in the late season, but then during the applications, the applicators were able to spot like one cluster that was in that area. So that was they were able to treat that. And he, oh,
And did you determine whether or not it was effective or not? It seems like something like that's pretty easy to go at.
yeah. When I followed up with the Phragmites treatment in October, I definitely saw a lot of impact. The Phragmites was hanging out a lot better than the um cattails in those areas. So it was really clear to see it. I will say that in these wetland areas, kind of around 38 and 39, I almost think that I saw, and we will be able to see more impact in our visits early in the summer and spring next year too. It was interesting because I think I saw the least amount of impact around the northern, like kind of the northwestern side of the Phragmites patch, which would have been kind of in the direction that they were spraying, and the wind was also northwestern winds during the time of the application. That's almost contrary to what I would expect. I would think that the herbicide would have the more impact in the direction that they were spraying with the favor of the wind. But in those areas, it seemed to be a little more hardy than kind of the other areas in that Phragmites. But at the other locations, besides this 38, 39, I saw some good impact on the species. And again, our surveys next year in 2026 will kind of reveal more about the lasting impacts of those treatments. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. So this was the first treatment, and I know we were joined by a few members of the team and some other residents, and we were given a ride around the lake to look at conditions, and we kind of all collaborated together on a treatment map. And so this was the treatment that occurred as a result of that. So the three main areas were in the Easy Street Canal, the marina, and in this like cove location. And so that came out to be about 4¼ acres of treated area, and the targets of that were curly leaf pondweed and Eurasian water milfoil. And in this blue area, they use Percellacor Signet Plus, which is just the like algicide essentially, so that you don't have a big algae bloom after you release all the phosphorus into the water from killing the target species. And then Tribune, which is sometimes also called Diquat. And then in these red areas, they were using Flumigard, which, kind of colloquially is called Flumi, and Signet Plus, again, that algicide. So those are the areas that we saw treated. And like I mentioned earlier when we were looking at those distributions of Eurasian water milfoil and curly leaf pondweed, when we followed up with our early season survey, we did not see either species in these treated areas. So that showed good treatment efficacy on those species of concern.
What is the determining factor in whether or not they use Percellacor or Flumi? Like
Yeah.
why was it one in one area and the other in the other?
Yeah, this was a little bit more of a deep water area in the marina, which is the main reason for that. We see the signet in both as that kind of algicide. And a lot of times they'll use the flumi I see is used a lot of times in the shallower, more stagnant locations, and it has more of an impact on kind of the like both kind of the algae that can accumulate after treatment. And I think it just has a better application in those shallower environments. But I think that that's a really good question that I don't fully know the answer to. So that's something I could follow up with PLM too and ask what the determining reason for those were.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so these were some pictures that were taken. I know they're kind of small, but they were some pictures taken by our field crews during the application. So you can see here, as we were mentioning, they were using aerial sprays in these locations. And we saw a good impact. There was mild temperatures that day. You can see, overcast skies, kind of almost perfect conditions for an application. I think that's why we saw a good impact. So this is the cove, this was the Easy Street Canal, and then this was the marina. You can see our field crews like to keep a good distance from them while they're doing their work. So
No, that's fine.
out there in the distance. And then there were two other herbicide treatments that occurred on the lake that were privately contracted. And so the first was on July 17th, and it was around 2 acres of Eurasian water milfoil. And they used that Flumi and the Signet Plus, so same things that were used earlier, and then it was just in this small shoreline area by that cove, so it's almost imperceptible on this map.
And that was privately contracted?
Yeah, so this was a privately contracted application.
Isn't that the township wetland there, or is that down to the landowners already?
I think that this becomes that DNR wetland, and then up here is the township.
I think it's that at Michelle's place, that at Bayview, or where was it?
Yeah.
Michelle used to own it.
I see it on this map now.
Yeah.
I just was thinking it was more wetland property.
Where the fire was.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And then another treatment on August 14th, and then same chemicals used in more of that like Cove Bay area that's back in there. And I didn't see, when I was looking on MindViro, any type of cattail or any other treatments that might have occurred on the eastern side of the lake that I know have been pursued in the past. So I didn't see any of those in 2025, unless they were submitted under, unless PLM submitted them under a separate category in MindViro, different from where these other 3 were posted.
Yeah, those residents, I think you were here too, Natalie, those residents.
Yeah.
Were here during one of our meetings,
Mhm.
and they indicated that they hadn't yet, but there was concerns, so.
Mhm.
They were doing some self-management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking people on the east end though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what, I think that's what she was talking about. She just mentioned that she didn't
Yeah.
see.
In this area. Yeah, I didn't see any, so and then that kind of corroborates what they were saying in that meeting. So maybe no management actions on those cattails this year.
When did our treatment in that cove take place? What was the date of that?
Ours was June 10th.
Yeah.
So
And retreated August 25th.
yeah,
Okay.
August 14th. Mhm.
And, and, was it because the treatment that we did wasn't very effective, or they just wanted to get rid of it all, or you don't
So
know? It's hard to guess, I guess.
yeah, from what I heard from PLM, they were mainly concerned about the Eurasian water milfoil, but I think also some nuisance pond weeds. And what we'll see
Okay.
sometimes is like, so this was submitted to, mine viral to the state as like a Eurasian water milfoil treatment. And so Eurasian water milfoil we did see in that area, and it was kind of persistent throughout the growing season. But they will oftentimes maybe have a little bit more of a heavy hand to alleviate some of the native pondweed conditions in that area too, or at least dig them up a little bit to make them easier to break up with a boat propeller. And so that was
Is
kind of
it-
the vibe that I was getting from PLM was kind of the combination Eurasian native plant weed growth in those areas.
It did seem like they had a little beach there too, so they
Mhm.
might have been using it more for recreation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that when Phil asked about it, they said something about muck treatment. The muck
Yes,
treatment.
yeah, I was just about to make a comment about that. Yeah, so I think that both of these, to the best of my knowledge, occurred in tandem with a muck treatment using muck pellets. Um, but to my understanding, that's not something that necessarily needs to be disclosed under like the ANC permits. So it doesn't have to be reported to the state. So I think that muck pellets were used in tandem in these areas. With as the same time as these treatments. I have to look back at my correspondence with PLM, and because these are private contracts, I think PLM
Right.
is kind of doing the courtesy of disclosing kind of these events, and then these are I pulled these from the state website. But in general, if they don't necessarily or the landowner doesn't want to disclose what they were doing out there, there's only so much that can be done.
Sure. No.
And then this was the Phragmites treatment that also we kind of came together, the team, to target those areas that we saw in the early and late season survey. So that occurred on September 24th, and it was about almost half an acre of Phragmites treatment. Again, in these like wetland areas, again in that cove, and then kind of by that DNR launch where we got the permit addendum to come treat in those areas, and then that one little cluster that I had mentioned kind of in that residential area over here in the east. So they were able to come and treat those spots. And then this was kind of what I was talking about earlier. I understand now that the question was a little bit more about cooling the herbicides and that what's the quantity of it. But again, that this is kind of like what I was talking about with the application rate that they have. They report, so they used 0.3 gallons total, I think is what I remember. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to understand. I think they're saying 4.4 acres.
0.3 gallons total of the
Yeah.
herbicide.
Yeah, maybe. But that doesn't, I don't know if that checks out. They're saying that it was an application rate of 0.75 gallons an acre. I have to look. They also submit online tables that has it kind of more clearly laid out than handwriting, so I can look at.
Well, 0.3 gallons would be 75% of 0.4 acres.
Oh,
So
yeah. Okay, yeah, no, yeah. That makes sense.
I have my applicator license, so
Yeah.
gonna be on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some photos that were taken during that application. So they were using a combination of their fan boat with aerial sprays and then backpack sprayers in some of those areas. So this is AROS 38 and 39, which is again that like cove location, and then AROS 46, which is in that DNR emergent wetland area that's by that like big berm action going on. So
Yep.
and then so here's a little bit more of some ecological findings that we found. So this is a table that we include in all of our reporting. It has the C value, which is the conservation value, which is that all of our species in Michigan have an associated C value. And in general, 0 is kind of like species that are not really indicative of good habitat environments. So these are species that can almost be found anywhere. And a lot of times a C value of 0 is given to invasive species. And a C value of 1, for example, like on this table, you can see that that's our coontail and cattail, which are species that are kind of more generalist, that can be found almost in any aquatic system. And then oppositely, a C value of 10 are like high quality species that are found only in like really good water quality conditions. You know, in this instance, you know, all species in Michigan, or like most species in Michigan, have associated C values. In this instance, it's a aquatic species, so they're strongly correlated to aquatic environments. So I think on this table, we're seeing white stem pondweed and our rush have the highest C values, followed by some of our native Nitella species. And so in general, yeah, like having a lot of species that have those high C values are good. And then frequency, which is, you know, the amount that we're seeing them in those AROSs, coverage, which is, you know, like the percent of the lake that species covered in, and the dominance, which is how much more common is this species compared to its neighbors, or the other species that we found in the lake. And so we're seeing that far and away, Kara is the most common species that we see throughout our surveys, which is good. That's like, you know, it's like the lawn of the lake. So it's good to see those species. And then we're seeing a really healthy variety of our native pondweed. So that's our white stem pondweed, variable pondweed, our wild celery species. We're seeing a really healthy mix of that, and it persisting throughout the growing season too. So. And then from this data, we compile, different metrics and compare them against management goals. So species richness, which is the number of aquatic species present in the lake, and we saw that grow throughout the early season. So we saw like 4 more species in the late season than we did in the early season. So that shows, you know, higher growth. And in general, having more species in the lake is generally more favorable, but like, you know, as we see with like the conservation values, those C scores, that not every species is necessarily like desirable, you know. So part of these 23 species that we observed is Eurasian water milfoil and curly-leaf pondweed and starry stonewort. So you have to kind of think about what species you're seeing too when you think about that metric. And then the Shannon Biodiversity Index explains the aquatic plant species diversity and their distribution evenness. And we saw the metric improve just a teeny tiny bit between the 2 surveys, but overall remained generally stable. And then the Shannon Morphology Index, very similar, but it takes into account the morphology of the species. So how much of a variety of low-growing plants like our Cara and Nitella are there compared to our pondweeds, compared to our floating leaf plants. And we saw that improve throughout the season as well. And then the Floristic Quality Index, which is the distribution of desirable aquatic plants. And in general, like broadly, you can think of the Floristic Quality Index as kind of the ratio of native to invasive species. So the higher floristic quality is, kind of the better that ratio is, and the lower it is, kind of the more undesirable that ratio is. And then the recreational nuisance presence is kind of more of a quantitative metric. So when we're out there on our surveys, if we see growing conditions that we think could possibly impair swimming or boating, or, you know, even aesthetic conditions, we'll record those areas. And so that's kind of reflected in those surveys. And we saw throughout both of our surveys this year that throughout both surveys, all of these metrics that we score were met. And on other lakes, if they don't meet the management goal, but they came close, you'll see yellow shading. If they didn't meet the management goal and they're kind of farther away from it, it's in red. So we see all green in this, so that's good. And it generally indicates better habitat suitability for fish and other aquatic organisms, these metrics. So that's why we include them. And those management goals are based off of what we see so for the Shannon Biodiversity and Shannon Morphology Index, those are based off of what we see at other Michigan lakes that we survey. So each year it kind of changes based on what we're seeing at some of our different lakes, so that you can really almost have a comparison to how, so like this almost represents a snapshot in time of like how Portage Lake is doing this year in comparison to other lakes. And so it's meeting the management goals. And the forest quality index stays always as greater than 20, and that's just based off of scientific literature.
Hmm.
And
Too
so
bad we can't make that more understandable to the public to put it in our tax. I mean, right there is
Yeah.
kind of somehow to make that understandable for the average taxpayer that we're actually doing pretty good,
Mhm.
that's, I don't know how we would do that.
Maybe if you had like this table of what Portage Lake looks like, and then don't tell the lake, but say,
Mhm.
Here's a lake of concern would look like, and have
Yeah,
all that
Yeah.
red stuff on it. You know what I mean? And that way you could just sort of contrast that Portage is a good lake, unlike this lake, and then have the nasty looking red.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, start thinking about that, Natalie.
Yeah.
One of you, like you say, don't include the
Mhm.
lake name, but just as a comparison to
Yeah.
where we can, in a brief, I don't know.
Or even if you could put something like that in the management plan, just a comparison,
Mhm.
Yeah,
like regional comparison.
Yeah.
Or lakes within your portfolio, or
Mhm.
that, that you're in your.
So, well, it would only be their portfolio, because they're the only ones that do the lake scan. So, right, this is kind of your guys's
Yeah.
shtick.
So
Yeah.
Natalie, would you be able to form like a state average out of what you guys do? Here's the average, our state average of lakes that we do.
Yeah. So
Compare
those
that.
metric goals in the Shannon Biodiversity and Morphology Index do reflect those values from our lakes that we collected data on in this year. But I do like that idea of kind of comparing against other lakes and other lakes of similar size too. And what we can do also with multiple years of survey data is we will also compare those averages across years, and you can stack them up. So in this graph, it's like early season, late season, 2025. And lakes that we have multiple years of data, we can, compile 5-10 year trends, and you can see across multiple years how the lake is changing. Just the same way that you can see those, kind of minor improvements across the years this year, but across the two surveys this year.
Let's say for comparison too, we probably don't want to do a statewide comparison.
You want some inland lake in the middle of Livingston County, and that's
Yeah,
not,
the
that's not
southern
us.
part of Michigan is gonna bring the average
And
down.
we'd want to have something that's hooked to Lake Michigan. That would be Nirvana. If we had Pentwater or, White Lake or Mosquito Lake or something that's, a lake that's got or Arcadia Lake, something that's got a hook to Lake Michigan. That's sort of but that's, like they say that people got to know that, to me, I'm a sort of layman, but that sort of looks like we're meeting our criteria.
yeah.
We're doing what we're supposed to do.
Management goals, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So generally, very favorable ecological conditions represented in this metric. So yeah, and we do have other lakes of similar size to Portage Lake connected to the Great Lakes as well. So we have another lake connected to Lake Michigan, and we have a lake connected to Lake Huron too.
There you go.
and that one's
Are they better or worse? I mean,
the
Yeah, you
ours.
ran.
Our one on the Huron is almost pretty similar. I think the metrics are a little bit lower, but still meeting those goals. And then the other one on Lake Michigan has experience. They have a lot of almost like homogeneous coverage of wild celery in the late season, and that's a native species, but it can bring those metrics down because you're just getting one species type and you're just getting one morphology too. And so
Yeah,
we'll see those metrics being brought down by that, even when it is a dominance of native species. Um,
and it's a good one too,
yeah,
based on the Archaria.
yeah.
Ed probably doesn't like it so much in his marina, but
That's
Um,
probably like it.
yeah.
so here we have a graph of the past 5 years of average yearly coverage of species, and from 2024 to 2021, those are the data that was included in the LMPs by PLM. So understandably, there is like a little bit of discrepancy between the two survey methodologies, but in general, the AVAS survey methodology and the LayScan methodology can be compared one for one like this, but it is like a little bit of a caveat, like they are not exact same methodologies. But at least what we're seeing in these coverage estimates, we are seeing still a little bit of an elevated coverage of Eurasian water milfoil compared to what we saw in 2022 and 2023, which I believe is following those like wider eastern treatments that were done in the eastern side of the lake. But we did see a decrease in Eurasian water milfoil from 2024, and then the same thing with starry stonewort, and then really leaf
But some of
pond.
that could be, oh, I'm sorry, some of that could be attributed to water depth, weather, I mean, a lot of
Yes,
other factors
we
rather than
see
just
a lot
moving
of
things.
impact on seasonality and weather in these trends too, where this year we're getting a lot more of a typical growing winter than we had last year. Last year was a pretty light winter, at least down here. I'm sure y'all experienced the same things. And so sometimes when you see like those low coverages in 2022, 2023, and then you almost see a boom in 2024, it's important to look at those trends where we were seeing a lot of advanced growth in 2024 across all of our lakes because it was just a lighter winter, and so those species got a head start for sure.
So I know
It's
you
good.
guys didn't find any of the frog bit on your official surveys, but you did document it when you went out with the fan boat. Is that gonna
Yeah.
be added in or at least some
Yes.
presence of it?
So what we will probably do is we'll definitely make note of it, but because we didn't see it on our official surveys, we didn't really document the density and distribution, which is included in these coverage estimates. And what we have done in the past has been able to go in and, like I was able to observe via the fan boat with PLM the density and distribution, so we could go back in and add it so that it's on the graphs. But what we'll probably do in this particular data, because we didn't see it in those surveys, is make sure that it's noted in it, but it might not be reflected in the figures.
I think that will be an important one moving
Okay.
forward, especially because 2024, we spent a lot of money hand
Yeah.
pulling
Yeah.
frog bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know where we're at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So for me, and this is just the frog bit tends to just go in those swampy, not lake
Mm-hmm.
areas. They're kind of along the
Why it doesn't
shoreline.
get picked up and,
Yeah.
they needed the fan boat to get in
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
But-
And we
Yeah.
have lower lake levels now, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of draining it away from it.
Yeah, and
But
I'm thinking more for 2026, I wanna make sure that we make an effort to get into those areas.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
because I don't, if we do decide to do more hand pulling, like, I wanna know if 2024 was a waste of time or not.
Mhm.
Um,
We did, we have discussed in-house definitely different ways to get up in there because we don't have a fan boat, but for sure different ways to get up there. When I was at the lake visiting in October for the Phragmites treatment follow-up, I just was able to walk in there. Because I was at first we were a little bit hesitant because of the mucky conditions, but it was fairly sandy or at least not unbearably mucky in those areas. So I walked in there, and I actually saw that the frog bit had receded a little bit from the conditions that I observed in the fan boat because it seemed like the water had come up a little bit when I was there in October. And I know PLM had told me anecdotes about how the rising water level can cause the species to become more distributed in that area. But I almost, felt like I saw the opposite. And again, it was kind of approaching the end of the growing season for a lot of our aquatic plant species, so that could also play a factor. But in the open water areas, even on the fan boat, we were not seeing much, if any, frog bit growth. It was mainly concentrated in those mucky, almost emergent areas intermingled with those cattails. So yeah.
According to Ted, I'm on the harbor commission, but according to Ted at the marina, and he measures it almost, weekly, the water is significantly down even since fall. I mean, it's way down. And he's got historical marks and it's way down right now.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, we did have that really dry fall. So yeah, but it is a very good point, and we'll make sure to make more of an effort to make sure that we're getting up in those areas. We do have canoes and kayaks available to us in house and waders, and when I was out there in October it was a little bit cold, but I just walked in there. So and then
It's cold today and it looks like that little cove there at Andy's Point looks like it's almost completely dried up.
oh wow.
It doesn't look like there's any water in it. So
Oh,
Yeah, it's big time down. The launch is, thank God you dredged it, Doug.
yeah,
It's only 1.7 feet as soon as you get outside of the
really,
launch, all the way out to the drop off.
really.
1.7. No, that's where you dredge it, it's deep
Oh, okay.
around the boat launch. As soon as you get outside of where you dredge, it goes to
Oh
1.7.
my gosh, there'd be no way you could use it.
It goes 1.7 all the way out to almost when it gets 4 or 5 feet, and then it drops off big time.
Yeah.
But there's several, probably a 50 yard period where it's 1.7.
Well,
I was just duck hunting out there just 2 weeks ago.
I'm glad we did the work.
If you wouldn't have done it, the launch would be totally inoperable.
And that permit's gonna last 5 years, so it's gonna be up to the Harbor Commission really to contact DNR if you find that it needs to be done before that 5 years. Getting the permit's the hard part, Of course, they did have to get that long reach and I don't know if what they used to pull the dirt out.
But unless they do all kind of channel to the basin out there, you could launch your boat and you could be fine at the launch, and you're not gonna be able to get from the launch to the lake unless you got a pontoon or had an aluminum 21-foot boat, and we put the tilt all the way up and we could back out of it.
Roll out almost.
Almost. Not sure you take the right angle to the launch, huh?
Yes, right.
Wow. I'll share that with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in this graphs, we compare what we saw in the early season to the late season survey. So we saw a little bit of an increase in Eurasian water milfoil and starry stonewort. And a lot of that can be attributed to just late season growth of both of the species. It's had all summer to grow, so we do see those increases. But in general, I mean, almost all of the, I guess all of the invasive species coverage that we were seeing this year was under 1.5% coverage. So that presents really good conditions and shows that there's a really low percentage of the lake that is impaired by these aquatic invasive species. And then we saw that decline in curly leaf pondweed, and then Phragmites stayed the same across the board. But our late season survey occurred before the treatment. So hopefully in 2026, during that early season survey, we'll see a further decline of the species. But again, that really low coverage of 0.1%. So.
Nice.
Yeah, and so this is kind of a visual of the species coverage that we're seeing. So like I said, we had that big late season boom of Cara, and that keeps your water clarity really good. Like I said, the lawn of the lake. And then again, our most dominant species are that healthy population of our native pondweeds, the wild celery, white stem pondweed. And then we have some of our emergents, cattails and rushes. And then you can see I've highlighted here in red our invasive species, which have much lower percentages than our native species, which is what we're hoping to have. And then some of these other species on the scale such as this, where Kara is so dominant, are barely even perceptible on here. So yeah, we're seeing like if you recall that C value of the Nitella is really high. So in some instances, like trying to promote the growth of some of these species that are a little less common but a little bit more valuable could be worthwhile. And then as you can see, the total coverage of the lake was 43% in the early season, and then that increased to 69% in the late season. So that's something else to keep in mind when you look at different metrics or how the lake is changing, or growth of, we saw some increases in starry stone or in Eurasian water milfoil, but just everything becomes more productive as the growing season progresses. So
And less herbicide too.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and then the last thing I wanted to touch on just briefly is that we are still working on compiling our water quality data. We're working on pulling in PLM's data to build up our databases so that we can keep doing our historic trends. So like these in particular are our wet weather storm drain sampling, so you can kind of see the trends over time. And there'll be a lot more flushed out in our final reporting, and we'll go back to all the historic data. These are just represent the last 5 years that we have digitized. And so this is total phosphorus on the left and nitrate on the right. And then we have our shoreline chlorophyll A samples as well. So a little bit lower of chlorophyll A we recorded this year in 2025 compared to some of the previous years. So that represents some nice, like, kind of low productivity conditions, clear water quality, water clarity we'll see as a result of those trends. And I'm working on right now keeping up with compiling the database for the tributaries. So that's kind of the next one. And then we'll work on the digitizing all the in-lake ones as well.
Hey, Natalie,
Mhm.
I make a request for
Yeah.
the management plan to add the acceptable ranges or
Yeah.
limits for those on the graphs.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that subjective though? I mean,
No, there's numbers for them.
are there?
Yeah. So the state has listed values for a lot of these ranges, and then some of the other ones are kind of more like scientific notations. And then for some of the values, we can also put like chlorophyll A can pertain to the trophic state index, which refers to the productivity of the lake. So, like hypereutrophic conditions are really productive lakes, and those are typically the lakes that you see with lower water clarity, high risk of algal blooms. And then like oligotrophic lakes, which have lower productivity, clearer water, less risk of algal blooms, which would be where Portage Lake falls under the category besides that kind of one outlier in 2021. And so we will sometimes also put those trophic states on the graphs too, and that's something that we can do in our final reporting.
Good.
Cool. Well, and that's what I have as far as our figures and graphs and trends that I threw in here for today's meeting. So yeah, if there's any questions or any other things that you guys would like or not like to see in the final reporting, let me know.
Well, yeah, other than the final report, what's next or what do you need from us? Natalie, I mean,
I guess did you all ever receive, like Excel databases from these water quality data from PLM, or was it mainly just culminated in that final
That
reporting?
was something Alexis always wanted, but
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what she was wanted to do with it.
she even had one of her interns started to work on it, but it was just the data was so difficult to kind of put into one of those sheets. So
I think
if we can get our hands on raw data, even if we don't
Mhm.
do anything with it, if we have raw data with the management plan, we at least can save that. And then
Hmm,
a time comes along, somebody wants to review that and look at it and do
Right.
something with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we can provide raw data. That's something that we usually include in our final reporting. Yeah, I was just asking because right now we're just going into those LMPs and pulling out the data from those. But yeah, if there was an Excel file or some raw data floating around somewhere, that would
Well,
greatly
you may want to
assist
send
us.
you may want to send Alexis a note.
Okay.
She started on some of that data. And compiling, getting some of that, like I said, she had an intern working on it for a little while and it just became too much.
Yeah.
The data wasn't easily transferred into.
Yeah, that's kind of the same issues that we're running into. So we've been
Yeah.
able, like, we're just kind of going almost chronologically with how we sampled this year. So we have all of the data pulled for the storm drains and for the shoreline chlorophyll A sampling. And like I said, I'm working on right now the tributaries, but yeah, it's a lot of data over the years, so it's taking a little bit of time. So I will reach out to Alexis about that.
Yeah. So my next question is, um, did, of course, we had a 1 year contract with PLM for the treatment. And so there's discussion on, do we rebid that? Do we invite others? Do we continue on with, because now's the time to start thinking about those rebidding because you got to get the Eagle permits and all that other stuff. So somebody else say something. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, what do they recommend?
Okay, good question.
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely a good benefit to PLM's previous experience on the lake. And I've experienced this year that they've had a really good open line of communication and have been really willing to schedule with us, especially with us attending those visits and our follow-up visits. So I don't see from a consulting perspective of advising any necessary need to switch contractors. But I can also see that from, anything of budgetary concerns, if you want to make sure that all of your options are open, that also makes sense. But it could just be more convenient to stick with, those who know the lake and who, I think the metrics this year are displaying that lake trends are improving over time and we're seeing a good reduction of those invasive species after treatments. And I think that generally speaks pretty favorably to PLM's work this year.
Sure. Um, oh, you gonna say something?
I mean, I feel like we probably owe it to the taxpayer to get bids from time to time.
So the question that, how, I mean, you mentioned budgetary considerations. I haven't really been following. I know that, the two of us, Cindy and I, get, invoices every once in a while, but I don't know how much we've spent so far this year.
Told you last month.
Oh, darn, sorry.
Just because at our I mean, even, I don't have my packet. Maybe I'll get it tonight with like the budget where we are today, so I could let you know as soon as I get my board packet.
So are we, yeah, because that's
I
that,
mean, we were under budget.
but we,
I just don't remember.
but I think as I recall, because we paid more for a lake manager, it was there, it's the overall budget. I thought we were paying, maybe our application bill was down, but I thought because it was a different structure of hiring a new lake manager, that was gonna be up. So I don't know what the overall.
So I just got my board packet.
Oh, okay, so here we go.
Jennifer,
Decided to look around. Like,
Jennifer
wait a minute, she may have sent it.
Jennifer must have heard you.
No, she sent it. Just give me a second, because I don't want to put that screen down and check.
So while she's looking, I keep the conversation going. So to rebid, we would have to come up with that list again of applicators
I
and,
don't know if we ever had a
Well,
list of applicators, did we?
I think it was, the only way there would have been an applicator mentioned is if it was a lake management company that also did that. But you're right.
Yeah, cause I think we were
well,
kind of
maybe,
strapped by the time we made a decision on a lake manager and it was, we're gonna just
that's why.
continue. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. So maybe Natalie can provide us with some possible applicators that we could,
And maybe a sample RFP, you probably have a RFP that you have developed for, and then we could, and I think you could convey to PLM, this is not because we think they're doing shoddy work or
Yeah.
expensive, or this is more of we just think we need to be vigilant to the taxpayer, just to to look out for their interest.
Yeah, cause I would think it would be unfortunate too if PLM decided not to bid because they've got a better taste of Onekama or something.
yeah,
They were very,
Oh,
willing to do it this year, so I would think, and if we send them a bid proposal or a request for a proposal, we're obviously still interested in their services, we just want a formal bid,
which hasn't been done in many years.
right?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's definitely the due diligence aspect.
And it would help in the annual report too, let us know that in 2025, we went out for bids for the 2026 season or whatever, and to look at what was going on, and this is who we came to conclusion was the best, and I think that would help just in the annual report, in the future to say that we did that.
so we're under budget.
Yeah, this isn't making sense to me.
Okay. Well, maybe not.
So we're gonna have to do some math and get back.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
gonna have to get back with us, okay.
No, it's like I don't see a lot of bills that we've paid.
No, I didn't see,
Charged against this.
no, I didn't see a lot of bills either. So
Maybe they
we
haven't
commented.
maybe they haven't been billed.
No, we've been billed.
By Kaiser and Associates too.
So. See, right now, it is only showing total expenditures. At $21,801.50.
That doesn't sound too off to me.
For the whole spraying and the
Yeah.
lake management fee,
This would be since the beginning of our fiscal year,
which is
April.
Oh, April first,
I don't know what
Fool's Day,
townships were.
yeah.
Prove more than that.
Schools are July 1.
I'll have to go through our emails. I would have
Say
guessed
it
we
was,
approved more
you
than
know,
that.
October 1,
Well, wanna move on?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so any other thoughts about what, other than the possible of a treatment contractor?
and our lake management contract, what was that for 5 years? I
Was
remember.
it three?
Oh, we did three.
3 years.
Option to extend.
Okay,
Yeah, up to 7, I think.
so that's in place, so we're good there.
Yep. As long as Natalie's okay with it too.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Natalie, I've been happy with the way it's went this year so far.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear it. It's
Please
been
share that with
beautiful.
Mark.
Yeah,
And the team.
I feel really fortunate that I've gotten to be able to go out there. It's a beautiful lake. So I'd never been up there before doing work this year.
Great. So. Other than that, I mean, I can't think of anything else that, we need to do for next year. Kevin's thinking.
Well, I've got
But go ahead, you're asking.
a proposal and I don't know if it's helpful for
It is.
Natalie to hear this, but
I think probably.
so I did talk, so I have my wife's cousin is a diver that has done the work for Lake Leelanau, and she did the benthic barriers up there
Hmm,
on Lake Leelanau. She informed me that she has her own business for diving services. So she said that she would be interested in if we were looking for someone to hand pull starry stonewort, she would be interested in that. So
Does she do dash or just hand pull?
just hand pulling.
Okay.
So that would be, those sporadic ones. And I don't know what it would look like. She's never done starry stonewort, never seen it, so she'd have to learn. But she's got all of her independent or her dive credentials that she would need, and then she even has someone that works with her for a two-party system for diving.
Mhm.
So I told her that I would share that with you guys, and I don't know how that would work. If you guys wanted me to reach out to her and have her submit a proposal. But right now I don't know what it will look like. I mean, the spots for starry stonewort have kind of moved around the lake, so I don't know what idea we'd have of how much we're gonna, pull or.
It's all like hand pulling, we don't need a permit anyway.
Don't need a permit, so I mean, it could
And we
happen
have,
throughout the
we
summer.
might have extra money and could try it.
But I think just to cover you, Tyler, maybe if she could help us on maybe a RFP, just to have an RFP for even that position too, just so we could say, at the end of the day that, what, this was someone who's referred to us, but at least we could at least say we looked at other people and
Well, I feel like Mark
Right.
brought up once before that they don't really do the RFPs.
so we do them internally. Yeah.
Is that correct, Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we could assist with. We might have to have another conversation about like addending like the scope, our current scope. But that, I mean, it's something that we can definitely assist with, but mainly it would be what you guys are hoping to see reflected in an RFP. So you would probably also be like the brunt of the work. I know something.
If we could develop the standard language
Yeah.
around, what that person would be responsible for, and then you guys could help with fine tuning locations to include in the RFP.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And disposal, and how would they do this, and all the
Mhm.
different type of thing, and then, location,
Yeah.
that those are things that would probably be helpful to you if we could
Yeah.
get a good GPS location in depth where they're working. There's probably some criteria if we send them out. Where, we want some data back when they get done, get some kind of how they measure how much they've taken out. I don't know, 3 garbage bags or a 55-gallon drum, or I don't know how you measure it.
Well, and the RFP would have to include, I don't know if there's any kind of standard training that would be required to, because we certainly have a lot of car and the difference is difficult. So, we, in the RFP, we would have to have some sort of training standard that any contractor would have to have gone through that training in order to be hired or something. I don't know what that would be, so that's something you could help us with, I'm sure.
And I think that because it's been on our radar for several years, it's almost could be like a pilot thing where we're gonna look at some particular areas. We're gonna hire these individuals that can pull, bring in volunteers if they want, or I don't know how they want you figure that out, but do it and then see the effectiveness of it, and then it lets us in our report too say, hey, we're looking for alternative methods. And if it becomes, it's just a feels good thing, and it's not really effective, then you know what, we say we give it a try, and we don't think it's really that effective, or it's very effective or minimally, I don't know. And I think, and it's almost like a pilot thing that we want to, we've heard about people saying, can we, variate from all chemicals to maybe some other type of methodology.
Yeah. And as sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was like, I know I mentioned it kind of at the beginning when we were first talking, but on one of our other lakes here in Southwest Michigan that's working on developing their volunteer diver program for starry stone removal that we've employed Dash on before. So it's very fresh in our minds because we just wrapped up our final reporting there. So these are definitely like different recommendations and ideas that we'll be sure to include in the final reporting.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and if there's any reference material from your guys' experience that you could share with us, you know, you don't have to write an RFP for us
Yeah.
necessarily, but if you've got a copy or can get a copy from a contractor, what they've seen, just to give us something to build off.
That would be great, yeah. The 2 RFPs.
And then what about timelines? I mean, our meetings, we meet when we need to meet. What kind of timelines when should we have a applicator in place?
It's a good question. I would say definitely by early May for sure is probably the good window because then we'll start scheduling again another preseason visit like how we did this year where we have select members from the team, maybe concerned lake residents who could all meet up with the applicator and look at
that
the
meet the
areas.
Permit
The
requirements?
Eagle permit was before May, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so for ANC permitting requirements, for that, yeah, like they try to get them out in this year, but really they can apply for those permits kind of whenever it's needed. But you would well, yeah, I guess to backtrack, what I'm saying is like to definitely have a contractor fully in place with the required permitting by early May would be desirable, but they're not necessarily bound by a certain timeline to apply for the ANC permits. It can just cause issues for trying to get them to apply for permitting and get it approved in the most busy application season.
Right.
So definitely early spring is
But
probably,
I mean, for us to develop an RFP,
Mhm.
for us to send them out to the possible candidates, for us to review, for us to make a recommendation to the township board, for the township board to accept that application. You know what? It's
We have a contract.
yeah. So I mean, it's not a, it's not,
February.
you gotta get going on this stuff so you can be, ready to roll. You gotta back it up 3, 4, 5 months,
I think with just the amount of things that we had in our winter agendas, we'll have, obviously, when the management plan is done, meeting to discuss that, but
Sure.
I think we can have our February, March meeting dedicated to building all of this stuff. Like we don't really need to have an agenda. We just make it a work session.
Yeah, I'm just getting a feel for it, because you don't wanna be under the gun.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to send out the RFPs in February, frankly. Myself. And get, and review, take a month to review, 2 months, perhaps get it on the township board agenda, I mean, it's.
Do you anticipate the management plan being done for review in January or later than that?
Yeah, January.
So, do you have a tentative date so we can set up our next meeting for that? Or do you want?
I think definitely before the next meeting. Are we doing every second Monday or third Monday? Third Monday. So that would be the 19th of January. I mean, if we wanted to hold to that, I think I don't foresee any problems with being able to have delivery of the report by then.
But well, we don't want you to be rushed and not have a.
Oh no, this is our report writing timeline. Like I said, the main thing that we're working through right now is just digitizing and creating a database for some of that historic data, but our figures are compiled for the most part.
I do see it's Martin Luther King Day. I don't know if that influences we got some working people here still,
Yeah, I'll be on. So
No.
You'd rather not have it that day?
Yeah.
I get it.
The following Monday then? Do you wanna go the 4th Monday next? Or do you wanna wait till February? I'm just concerned about this RFP stuff.
Yeah, I mean. I could also do the second Monday.
But let's stop a minute.
Okay.
Or not what's available.
So the third Monday in January is a holiday.
Yeah.
So if you moved it to the 26th, I'm just throwing that out, because in February, the third Monday is a holiday.
Oh.
Yeah.
So my only point is if you moved it to the 26th or the fourth week on both those months, you'd have the same period of time between the meetings. Or else you're gonna have to move them up a week, whichever way you go. See what I'm saying, Tyler?
I mean, if it's no issue, I'd say we expedite if it's no issue with Natalie to have the second Monday of January.
We'll do 12 for February 9th.
That would be what I would say.
So Cindy's saying, so go the week after, week before the holidays.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me.
It's fine with me.
Week before then.
So January 12th.
Wait a minute, Doug's going,
I could,
He's in Cancun or something.
no, oh man, heck, no. Yeah, we can do it the 12th.
Now, Tyler said 4:30, is it 4, or is 4 what we're
So it didn't
going?
really matter for Roger. He didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I asked him, but something must have came up.
it could have,
Yeah.
he's using pretty good.
Yeah,
Stick with 4 so nobody gets confused.
Okay. Is Alexis, is she still on the committee? I just
I think
like,
she stepped down from everything she's on.
oh,
But not formally. She hasn't provided letters to anyone, but
Okay.
I haven't seen Alexis in, I don't know, 10 months, a year.
Yeah.
And I serve on multiple committees that she served on, so.
is she still working at the?
Right, she's working, I think she took on some additional things.
leadership roles.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
so do we want to not only do, like, state the January meeting, do we want to just say our next two meetings are January 12th and February 9th?
I think that'd be helpful.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so you let us know, Natalie, if the 12th is, unattainable, and then we can discuss it with the group and change it around.
Alrighty, will do.
Do, and this is probably in question for you, Cindy, is, often we had a discussion with the township board. What do you think about that? I mean, or.
About what?
Yeah, I think we used to do a presentation for the township board on the lake
Yeah.
management plan.
Yeah,
That wouldn't be bad. You know, I mean, because the one benefit that has is then it's also televised, the community knows about it, if the community wants to come, I mean, not that
yeah,
they don't know about this, but I think
Yeah.
they pay more attention to the board meetings than they do us.
And is that something you want Natalie for?
I think it'd be easier than us doing it, don't you think?
yeah.
Do you know what board meeting that would be then? Would it be the January board meeting? Just
It could be,
wondering
because our,
she needs to get in person.
so our board meeting is either January 21st or February 18th. And then I would need to just talk to David to make sure and the clerk that that's okay, but I can't imagine it's not, but.
And so if you wouldn't mind sharing with Natalie, what would that entail? I mean, it would probably be 20-minute discussion of the report she's gonna put
I
together.
would say she could put whatever presentation she would typically do, can do it via Zoom if
Yeah,
you're not able to be here, because all our meetings are on Zoom.
and so, yeah, just a.
You
Don't
would
need
just
to,
be given an invasive species report, and I know often when we have like a guest come, David's really good about moving the agenda up so that they don't have
Yeah.
to listen to
Yeah.
everything.
So it'll be a synopsis of the management plan.
And the meetings are during the day, are they not?
No, our meetings are at 4.
4 o'clock.
Well, I guess it starts during the day.
Yeah.
But it's dark, so.
And then maybe too, Cindy, if we could just get finances, I just like to get a feel for where we're at.
Well, and I just read it to you and I
Yeah.
can get you a copy. The only thing I want to look through the invoices. That seems fun.
It does.
No, I mean, based on what I've been seeing, unless we miss one, I mean, that's,
You think that sounds right?
that does sound right to me
But
based
that,
on,
but that number doesn't even cover as I recall, the annual lake management fee.
so,
But
Yeah.
it depends how the fiscal years broke down too.
That's-
Have we
Did
been,
you
have we been
have,
billed for everything, Natalie? Or is there more to be billed? You know.
I would have to double check with our office manager who handles all the invoicing. I think that there is still some work to be billed, especially towards the final lake
Yeah,
management report.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely anticipate that, but I believe that we are all like through to at least the beginning of December invoice.
And I mean, just to give you guys a.
so that's why I've been questioning you as far as the costs of this.
So just to give you an idea,
yeah,
the fund balance as of the end of November is $88,000.
that's in the tax what they bill.
No, that's
how
our
much
fund
money is
balance.
sitting in the account right now, our bank.
Escrow, whatever.
So what happens if you have a carryover? Does they give
We have
it
to
back?
go back to the.
Over-
There's a certain amount that you can carry.
Carry over, it's
Yeah.
like, but you can't keep building that.
Oh, I got it.
And then there's a time frame like after there's a percentage you can be in. So I mean, we're okay going year to year.
Yeah.
It's just when we start going toward the end,
Mhm.
you can't have bucks sitting there.
I got it. And do we, and how many years is that up for vote? We're 2 or 3 years out, aren't we?
I'm gonna say it's 2 or 3. I remember reporting it.
Yeah, and
when
anyway, I
Ed
think
did
those are
it for
good
me.
things we could talk about, how much money we got, what's our budget, how many years till we gotta renew.
And all those green little boxes she just showed us.
Yeah, but those are all
Cause
good
you probably have to start at least a year in advance for,
to get it on the ballot.
yeah.
Well, the board probably got a vote to continue to want it on the ballot. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know who makes that call, probably the board.
So that's why you're gonna be talking to the board there, Natalie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a synopsis of your plan, I mean, and they'll have questions, and there'll be questions from the public.
Did you get those dates, Natalie?
I think, was it January 21st and February 18th? Or did I hear the February one?
That would be, I think it's February 19th.
19th.
Wait a minute, why don't I have? Wait a minute,
Is that Thursday?
wait a minute, what am I, oh, I'm in the wrong year.
Yeah, there you go. 2026.
Dear God.
18.
Welcome to my world. Okay, January 21st and February 18th.
Got 'em.
At 4 PM, and, Cindy, you can make sure she receives the link, and I don't know what's your preference, Natalie, you want the January date or the February date?
Let's see what the township wants to,
Well, I think I need from her first.
yeah. Well, we'll have
Yeah.
it in
If she wants
January
it in
9th.
January, then I would
Yeah, we probably.
ask David and Jennifer now about January if she prefers February for some reason.
Because this group probably need to review the management plan, and maybe there's some discussion on that, and might have some, I don't know, whatever, but whatever.
Yeah, February might work better. That way
Yeah.
we can, go through it with Natalie and go through it ourselves. If there's corrections or additions, then that could get worked in by February.
Or what to focus on with the township board members or something, yeah.
Yeah. That sound good
February
to you,
18th.
Natalie?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because I was going to say that the January 21st could work, if that's what the board favors, but I definitely want to make sure that we have enough time to discuss and look at the management plan together before reporting.
We'll
out.
make sure that I let Jennifer, our clerk, and David, our supervisor, know the intent of that and just make sure that there's nothing I'm not aware of that would interfere with that in February.
It might be nice to have an RFP ready too, a couple of them maybe. Well, the hand pulling probably doesn't need to be right away, but the treatment might need to be, because as I remember last time, they needed a certain amount of time to get that Eagle
Yeah,
permit in.
I do think that the RFP process will be easier for us than it was for a lake manager though.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, and if we were to choose PLM, the contract process is gonna be easier too,
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
just saying.
But I'll let the township know that we're thinking about going down that road, you know what I mean? I think that helps
Yeah.
them and.
Yeah. And, we almost have to have, I like to have the evaluation criteria set up before we release the RFP, so we're not changing, horses in the middle of the street, whatever. So yeah, it's gonna be some, and
Well-
I just need an example. I
too, and
could help write it, but I just need help.
I don't wanna seem like I'm, you know, pushing too strongly for a family member, but I don't know who we would send an RFP out to for hand pulling. Yeah, she's the only one that we know of.
Unless
that-
Natalie knows somebody.
Yeah, unless you know somebody that contracts out hand pulling.
Or Alexis, she seemed to have somebody before, I thought. Remember
I
that?
think she was big on Dash,
Yeah,
but that's
Mhm.
that's,
Yeah.
contract.
is that where you suck it out?
That's
Yeah.
the suction with the
Mhm.
bar.
Oh, I got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is,
Just put it in the bag.
what we talked about before was what, like maybe getting the sheriff's department to see if they want to do a training exercise and volunteer time to go out and hand pull, but I don't know what the feasibility of that actually is.
I don't like, so there's some things that are good for volunteerism and some aren't, and
Yeah.
sending someone underwater with a scuba tank and identifying right and wrong reads, I think could, I'd want to make sure whoever we hired has some liability insurance and, all this and that. It's not just,
Yeah.
that's
My
not.
guess is the township board would probably prefer that also.
Yeah. You're
Just a guess.
not picking up trash along the side of the highway, which can get dangerous too,
Yeah, I don't know what the structure of her organization that she's doing this. She just told me she's got her own dive business, so I don't know what she has for liability insurance, but
She probably got an LLC and probably got some liability and,
Yeah.
something.
but my thought is we might not need an RFP. We could just maybe have a conversation with her and ask questions and then develop a contract.
And have a budget or something,
Yeah.
Well, as long as everything is, you call it a pilot program, sometimes you can just pick, for a pilot program, you can just see if this is actually gonna work or not and see what, what.
We used to do pilot programs, you didn't have the union couldn't get on, you couldn't get this, so.
Right.
We used to call it pilot because then you didn't have to follow a lot of the different protocols.
Yeah.
It was easier.
So do you want me to reach out and see about her attending a meeting? Probably, she lives in, William,
Well.
but we could do virtual.
Right. So Natalie, question, if we wanted to go down this road with this diver, is this something that you guys would be willing to be here and kind of oversee just to assure that, the right vegetation's being pulled and,
Like they
Yeah.
do with treatment?
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
At least the first time, maybe, I don't know.
Right, cause
Yes.
that makes me feel a whole lot better,
Mhm.
having some
Yeah.
oversight, having said that she
Yeah,
doesn't really know,
yeah.
but I think it'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we're currently in the process of developing some of our trainings and workshops to create. This is a volunteer base, so based on lake residents, but similar concept for somebody who doesn't necessarily have like the same vegetation ID experience. One of the ideas that we threw around on that particular lake too was to start with some vegetation that's a little bit easier to identify, like curly leaf pondweed, for example, can be a good one because there's not really a native that looks too similar to it. And then once you know it, it's pretty easy to spot. And so to start with some invasives that would still be good to get out of the lake, that are a lot easier to see and grab, and then work your way up to some of those more trickier identifications, especially with the Kara and Starry that can really commingle together, like they'll grow together too, that teasing them out from each other can be a challenge. So we definitely are willing to do some oversight and trainings where needed for sure.
And I'm guessing her experience is a little more than like an average volunteer, because she is doing benthic barriers for Eurasian water milfoil, so I think she's been doing that for 4 years now. She's the lead dive for her crew. So I would think that, she's got some decent, knowledge, but she's never dealt with starry stone work, but I feel like it could be something.
No, I
wasn't trained.
I personally feel a lot better about it. You know, a trained diver, part of the dive team of the sheriffs or whatever, rather than, getting a bunch of ragtag outfit out there. You know what I mean? To me, that I'd much rather have someone we're paying, someone we can have a little control over. Volunteerism's great, but you lose control. And if they decide not to come or they don't come, and if they, it's just when you're paying somebody, I think you get a little more accountability. I mean, that's at least how I feel about it. And if our budget allows, hey Cindy.
So do you guys have an action item for me then, in correspondence with her, or you need more discussion?
How are we gonna do that?
I just know that we're kind of strapped on the meetings, so.
Yeah, and so, do you have any training sessions set up already, Natalie, or you're still working on it?
Yeah, our intention was to get out there in the fall of this year, but how things go. Winter hit us quickly. So yeah, come spring, we will be implementing our programs. Yeah, but we have like not me personally, but other divers that used to work in-house did perform manual removal of starry stoneware on that particular lake years past. So we've had
And maybe Tyler, if she'd send Doug a letter of interest and say, you know what, I've been I just like to let you know that I'm on Lake Leelanau. I do this. Here's my training. Here's what we do currently. Yeah, and just almost send a letter that she's just and you're just tipping her off that we're we're thinking about going down this road. And she could just on her own send some letter of interest to Doug and just introduce herself and talk a little bit about what she's currently doing.
Yeah, don't have her forward the message that you sent her, so
it's just
a brand new message.
And basically she's heard, you know what I mean? And so I think that's a good way for her to sort of, would you say, Phil? I mean, just because we've been having tons of conversation about it, and it's time to move. I get it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I gotta get going. The streetlights are on. It's time for me to go home.
Sounds good. So we have a date. If you have any thoughts, Natalie, on where to, if you have an example of an RFP on this treatment thing, that would be great for me to get started. I don't know where I would start on that. Try to have something together for the next meeting for people to review. You can send it out, and maybe a list of people you would recommend sending it to. So then we can just go and crank it out for next meeting.
Yeah.
It's a busy time, but I'll try to get through it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a good holiday.
Thank you. You all as well. Thank you so much.
Phil, you were like a walking freaking disaster.
That doesn't look good at all.
Freaking severs.
Self again.
Yeah,